How does one ensure safety in a dangerous world such as ours? Is it even possible? Or is it just us who think the modern world, with its ominous omniscience and crippling chaos, is the worst humanity has ever had? Maybe the ancients had it worse. Perhaps the Middle Ages. Doesn't matter. The solution draws a parallel across the timelines, for it doesn't solve the dangers that might come for us. It solves us. Imagine living each day as if you were a prisoner, chained not by bars, but by the whims of your own physical state. Every ache, every wrinkle, every sign of aging becomes a source of relentless worry. You're no longer living life freely. Instead, you're navigating a labyrinth of worries, constantly on edge about what might happen to your body next. In today's video, we'll explore the critical relationship between mind and body, and why letting your physical state dominate your life can lead to a cycle of fear, anxiety, and insecurity. We'll dive into how shifting your focus from the body to the mind can help you reclaim your inner peace. Instead of being ruled by the body's needs and imperfections, you'll learn how to use it as the tool it is, maintaining it with care, but never letting it steer your life off course. If you've ever felt trapped by concerns over health, appearance, or physical decline, stick around. We'll also touch on the topic of social perils we often encounter and see how we can save our skin socially. Mind over matter. When we allow the body to become our master, we are essentially handing over the keys to our inner peace, allowing fear, anxiety, and insecurity to take the wheel. Imagine living each day with your mind shackled to the whims of your physical state, like a prisoner who can never leave their cell. Every ache, every sign of aging, every imperfection becomes a source of relentless worry. You're no longer living life freely. You're navigating a minefield of anxieties, constantly on edge about what might happen to your body next. The slightest cough triggers a cascade of fears about illness. A wrinkle in the mirror becomes a reminder of time slipping away, and any loss of physical strength feels like a loss of your very identity. But here's the truth. The body is a tool, not a tyrant. It's like owning a car. Yes, you need it to get from point A to point B, and yes, it requires maintenance to keep running smoothly. You check the oil, you fill it with gas, you wash it from time to time, but you don't worship the car. You don't spend every waking moment polishing the hood or obsessing over every scratch. You use it for what it's meant for, transportation. Similarly, the body should be maintained with care. Feed it, exercise it, ensure it's in good health, but don't let it become the center of your universe. When you let the body dictate your life, you lose sight of what truly matters. You become so consumed with protecting and preserving your physical self that you forget to live. You might skip out on meaningful experiences because they carry some physical risk, or you might avoid relationships out of fear of emotional pain, which often manifests as physical discomfort. This constant vigilance, this never-ending pursuit of bodily perfection, traps you in a cycle of stress and dissatisfaction. And what's the result? A life dominated by fear, of getting sick, of growing old, of being judged, of losing what you've worked so hard to maintain. This fear breeds anxiety, a constant, gnawing sense that something is about to go wrong, that you're not safe, not secure. And with anxiety comes insecurity, as you begin to doubt your worth, seeing it only in terms of your physical appearance or health. But what if we flipped the script? Suppose we don't let our body be our master and see it for what it actually is, a vessel, a vehicle for our true self, the mind, the soul, the essence of who we are. How would such a shift in focus help us? Indeed, such a shift in focus, from the external to the internal, helps us reclaim our power. We come to realize that our value doesn't lie in the state of our body. It lies in the strength of our character. It lies in the clarity of our thoughts. It lies in the depth of our wisdom. Yes, the body deserves care, just as your car deserves regular maintenance. But remember, you are not your car, just as you are not your body. You are the driver, the one in control. Don't let your body's needs and imperfections steer your life off course. When you stop worshipping the body, you free yourself from the chains of constant fear, and you start to live a life that's driven by purpose, not by paranoia. How to think clearly. Our most pervasive fears, poverty, sickness, and the violence of others, are all intimately linked to our attachment to the body. When we fear poverty, it's not just the lack of material wealth that haunts us, but the dread of physical deprivation, hunger, exposure to the elements, and the inability to provide for our body's basic needs. Similarly, the fear of sickness goes beyond mere physical pain. It strikes at the heart of our need for control. The thought of our bodies betraying us, of being unable to move as we once did, or of losing the vitality that makes us feel alive, is profoundly unsettling. And looming over all of this is the ultimate fear, death. The decline of the body is a stark reminder that our time is finite, and with it, the life we know and cherish. These fears are powerful, but they are often amplified by our own minds. Our imagination can be our worst enemy, transforming the fear of sickness or poverty into a monster that is far larger than the reality. Think about it. The fear of an impending illness can sometimes be worse than the illness itself. We envision the worst-case scenarios, blowing them out of proportion until they overshadow everything else. The same is true for the fear of powerful individuals or groups. Their threats loom large because they are visible, loud, and often dramatic, like a storm rolling in with dark clouds and crashing waves. We see the thunder and lightning, we hear the wind howling, and our minds immediately jump to the conclusion that disaster is imminent. But consider the quieter dangers, like sickness or hunger. These do not announce themselves with such fanfare. They creep up on us, often unnoticed, until they are already at our doorstep. Yet, despite their subtlety, they are no less dangerous. The difference is in how we perceive them. Because they don't shout for attention, we might not fear them as much, even though they can be just as devastating. In response to these fears, we aren't to show reckless bravery, but wise caution. We should steer clear of situations that could provoke powerful enemies who might eventually come for our heads or expose us to unnecessary and often secretive dangers of the body that ultimately rot us from within. This isn't cowardice, it's prudence. Imagine a sailor navigating a treacherous sea. Only he doesn't know it because he doesn't want to. He won't lend his ears to sound advice that comes for free. Knowledge that the sea is truly treacherous on a side escapes his ego when it doesn't prick it. Such a foolhardy sailor might even charge headlong into a storm, thinking he can brave the elements. But the wise sailor, recognizing the limits of his ship and his own strength, not to mention knowledge, would chart a course that avoids the worst side of the sea and the storm, preserving his ship and his life. The same principle applies to life. Sometimes, the smartest move is not to engage in a fight, but to avoid it altogether. This approach is about understanding the world as it is and acting in a way that preserves your well-being. It's not about living in constant fear, but about acknowledging the risks and taking steps to mitigate them. Discretion is often the better part of valor. By choosing our battles wisely, we can avoid unnecessary conflict and protect ourselves from harm. Sometimes, the best way to emerge victorious is not by fighting every battle, but by sidestepping those that don't need to be fought at all. Balance your life. Jealousy, hatred, and scorn, the toxic emotions that can arise from the interactions we have with others. These emotions, more often than not, stem from rivalry, misunderstandings, or simple differences in perspective. When unchecked, they can spiral into conflict and, in extreme cases, even violence. In the social arena, where egos clash and ambitions collide, the wise individual must navigate carefully to avoid becoming a target of such destructive feelings. Jealousy, for example, is born from comparison. When others perceive that you have something they lack, whether it's wealth, status, talent, or even happiness, they may begin to resent you. This resentment, if left to fester, can turn into hostility. Similarly, hatred often arises when someone feels wronged or threatened by you, even if the threat is imagined or exaggerated. Scorn, on the other hand, is the disdain others feel when they believe you are beneath them, or when your actions or successes make them feel insecure about their own lives. These emotions are dangerous not just because of what they can lead others to do, but because of how they can disrupt your own peace of mind. Constantly looking over your shoulder, worrying about what others think of you, or trying to manage others' perceptions can become a heavy burden. It's a burden that can weigh down your spirit, making you anxious, defensive, or even bitter. Stoic wisdom advises us to find a middle path. It suggests living in a way that doesn't draw too much attention, neither through ostentation nor through being overly reserved. If you flaunt your successes, you invite envy and jealousy. If you act superior or dismissive, you invite scorn. But if you shrink too much, if you hide your light under a bushel, so to speak, you might invite others to underestimate or disregard you, potentially opening the door to being trampled upon or taken advantage of. It's about striking a balance, living authentically without overplaying your hand. Think of it as walking a tightrope between two extremes. On one side is the danger of drawing too much attention, which can lead to envy and rivalry. On the other is the risk of becoming invisible, where others might overlook or undervalue you. The wise person walks this tightrope with care, ensuring they neither provoke unnecessary hostility nor allow themselves to be pushed aside. This balance involves being confident in who you are and what you have, without needing to broadcast it to the world. It means doing your work well and achieving your goals, but without rubbing your success in others' faces. It's about being respectful and kind, but also assertive when necessary, so that you don't become a doormat for others' ambitions or frustrations. In practical terms, this could mean being mindful of how you present yourself. Are you speaking or acting in a way that might unnecessarily provoke others? Are you contributing to a conversation in a way that's constructive rather than combative? Are you making choices that reflect your values without needing to seek validation or approval from others? By living with this kind of awareness, you minimize the chances of becoming entangled in the petty rivalries and conflicts that can so easily erupt in social interactions. You don't seek to dominate others, nor do you allow them to dominate you. Instead, you aim for a kind of equilibrium, where your presence is felt without being overwhelming, and where your actions speak for themselves without needing to shout. This approach not only helps you avoid the dangers of jealousy, hatred, and scorn, but also fosters a sense of inner peace. You're no longer chasing after the approval or fear of others, but instead living according to your own values in a way that's both respectful and self-assured. This, Stoicism suggests, is the path to a more harmonious life, where you can navigate the social world without getting caught up in its most destructive undercurrents. Think like a philosopher. Philosophy is not merely an intellectual exercise, but a vital refuge, a sanctuary for the mind and soul amidst the chaos of life. It is not something to be studied at a distance, like a collection of ancient texts or abstract ideas confined to the ivory towers of academia. Rather, it's a living, breathing practice that has the power to transform our lives from within. It's a way of life that shields us from the ceaseless noise, ambition, and strife that surround us. In a world where distractions and pressures are ever present, philosophy serves as a kind of retreat. Imagine the world as a bustling city with its crowded streets, constant chatter, and unceasing demands. Now, picture yourself stepping away from that city into a quiet garden, a place where you can sit in stillness, where the air is fresh and the noise of the outside world fades into the background. This is what philosophy offers, a space within your own mind where you can withdraw, reflect, and find peace, no matter how chaotic life becomes around you. Philosophy helps us view the world more clearly. It helps us cut through the noise, the superficial worries, the petty conflicts, the endless striving for things that don't truly matter, and focus on what is essential. It teaches us to ask the right questions. What is truly important in life? What is and isn't in my control? How should I respond to adversity? The answers, when they come from wisdom cultivated through philosophy, give us the perspective we need to navigate life's challenges with calmness and courage. Consider the pressures of ambition, for example. In a society that often equates success with wealth, status, or power, it's easy to become caught up in a race that leaves us feeling constantly behind, never satisfied, always striving for more. But philosophy invites us to step back and question this pursuit. Is it leading to happiness, or is it just filling our lives with stress and anxiety? By encouraging us to seek fulfillment, not in external achievements, but in inner virtue and wisdom, philosophy helps us find contentment and peace, even if the world around us seems obsessed with the next big thing. Similarly, in times of strife, whether it's personal conflict, social turmoil, or global crises, philosophy offers a steady hand. It reminds us that while we cannot control the actions of others or the events that unfold around us, we can control our own responses. Philosophy teaches resilience, the ability to remain composed and grounded in our principles even when the world seems to be falling apart. It's like having an anchor in a storm. While the waves may rage and the winds may howl, we remain secure, not because the storm is any less fierce, but because we have something solid to hold on to. This realization that philosophy cultivates is not about ignoring the hardships of life or pretending that they don't exist. It's about facing them head-on with a calm and courageous spirit, knowing that we have the faculties and devices to deal with whatever comes our way. Philosophy equips us with those tools, whether it's the wisdom to accept what we cannot change, the courage to change what we can, or the composure to find calm amidst turmoil. Stoic philosophy is a call to live deliberately and thoughtfully. It's a reminder that amidst all the external pressures and distractions, we have a place within ourselves where we can retreat, reflect, and renew our strength. Philosophy is that place, offering us not only peace and protection, but also the clarity and courage to live a life that is true to our deepest values. It's not just about thinking differently, it's about living differently, in a way that brings us closer to the kind of inner peace and resilience that no external force can shake. By keeping our fears in check, avoiding unnecessary risks, and cultivating wisdom through philosophy, we position ourselves to lead a life that transcends mere survival. It's about creating a life that is not only safe from external threats, but also rich in meaning and fulfillment. While the body plays a crucial role in our existence, it is ultimately the mind, the seat of our reason, wisdom, and judgment, that must steer the ship. The body may be the vessel that carries us through the physical world, but it is the mind that charts our course, guiding us through life's storms with clarity and calm. When the mind is in control, when it is excellent, we can endure physical discomfort without losing sight of what matters. And it is this excellence of that mind which tells us that fears are natural, but when left unchecked, they can become overwhelming forces that dictate our actions and limit our potential. Whether it's the fear of failure, rejection, illness, or death, these anxieties can easily consume us, leading to decisions that are more about avoiding pain than pursuing purpose. However, when we consciously work to manage our fears, we reclaim control over our lives. Instead of being driven by what we fear, we can be guided by what we value. We can take calculated risks that align with our goals, rather than being paralyzed by the possibility of loss or harm. But that doesn't mean living in a bubble, sheltered from every possible danger. It means being discerning about the challenges we take on, choosing our battles wisely. Life will always present us with risks, some of which are worth taking, while others are not. The key is to approach these decisions with a clear mind, weighing the potential benefits against the potential costs, and making choices that reflect our true priorities. Cultivating wisdom philosophically, then, becomes essential to this process. Philosophy supplies the tools to think deeply about how we make our choices, how we identify and critique our assumptions, and how well we, and that we must, understand the underlying principles that should guide our lives. It teaches us to focus on what truly matters: our character, our relationships, our contributions to the world, rather than getting caught up in superficial concerns. By engaging with philosophy, we develop a framework for living that is grounded in reason and guided by a sense of purpose. In this way, our lives become not only safe, but also meaningful. Safety, in this context, isn't about avoiding all risks or challenges. It's about creating a solid foundation of inner strength and clarity that allows us to face life's uncertainties with confidence. And meaning comes from living in alignment with our values, from pursuing goals that resonate with our deepest beliefs, and from contributing to something larger than ourselves.